I'm giving you all the roses because you don't need all the other. Now, do we have God come? Do we have things creep in more? Absolutely. That it is a big burden as far as that goes, because it's. And I'm not saying Torah's burden. Don't get that wrong. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it is something that does come against us. We have that neighbor relationship that we have. My parents and I can't talk really anymore. That's sad. But you know what? I can't worry about that. That's on him. He's taking care of it. But that relationship's getting better. Because you got to understand, she hated me at a point in our marriage. I hated her at a point in my marriage. That's not a fun comment to say. None of us want to admit that. Okay? Gabriel, don't get to that point. You don't have to. You don't have to. You start following things like this, and guess what? You're going to be brought, things are going to be brought against you. You're going to go under persecution. You're going to have all those things happen. But you don't have to let that win. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I totally understand where you're coming from, Leah, because when we started this 10 years ago, and relationships with our family have been very hard, and we've had friends walk away from us, and we have been through things that we never thought we would go through. But in those 10 years, in walking Torah, when God brings us with others who are walking Torah, we have a deeper, greater, higher quality relationship and support group that gets us through each one of those things than we ever had before we started walking Torah. And so, yes, when we started walking Torah, it became the best thing that ever happened to us. It also became the hardest thing that ever happened to us.
Absolutely.
But I believe that God puts those people together with us to get us through it.
Right. And that, I actually have a group of guys that I get to talk to about my struggles. And guess what? Every one of them is a part of this group. I can't talk to my dad about issues I'm having with Randy. She can't talk to her mom about issues that we have. But she does talk to the ladies in here. Why? Because it's safe. It's not something that, we're not a huge club. We didn't create a club. We decided to actually follow God. And when He says you follow me, I will take those things on me. Do you know, financially, there's burdens. Every one of us in here have met financial burdens at some point in our life. But guess what? When you actually lay them on Him like He says to, it takes care of itself. I should not be in my house right now. I should have been kicked out long ago. But guess what? God took care of me. I'm just saying, it's not of me, it's of Him. And this is why He gives us His reason. He gives us the reason to look at His Word and actually study it and actually go through what are these roles. There's a pattern. The pattern, I wish I was here last week. I'm so sorry I'm not.
Because DVD for $19.99.
I'll buy that DVD. But I've got to get that DVD because I've gone through those steps. When Randy Kay and I pray, we actively in our mind, I don't know about the rest of you, I'm just letting you in on our life a little bit, okay? But when we actually go into our prayer time, what we actually do is we approach the altar. And then we get to make the sacrifice of ourselves. And then we approach the laver and we get to wash clean. Okay? And then we get to go in. I mean, you've got to actually picture that, in my opinion. For us, it makes it real. My growing up, I didn't know what prayer was. I had no concept of it. Because it was like, bow your head and pray. That was all it was. And I was just sitting there going, okay, it's great, you know. And then they'd ask me to say it, and my dad has like the world record for prayer. I promise you. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes. I kid you not. I kid you not. And, what?
He prays that.
My dad. He was doing that at church. And they don't ask him to pray much because it's like a special occasion when they ask my dad to pray. Because it's going to be a good 45 minute, all right? But it was one of those things, I just thought you had to fill it up with words and it had to come from the heart, but there was no, it was just let it go. you know, and God will grasp it and take care of it. That's the concept I had, okay? But now you actually get to go through and you get to see what a priest, his role. You actually get to see how he approaches God, all right? And what he's telling God. What is it? I mean, what are the conversations Aaron's having with God? You know, I mean, come on. If you had that opportunity, you got to start thinking about what are you going to do when you have that opportunity to say those things to God. Guess what? You have them every day. If you're praying continually, you have them every minute. I'm just making the point, though. Now I have a concept. Now I have a way to approach him. Now I have an actual relationship with him. Why? Because I know what the role is. I didn't know how to handle my kids. I still don't. But I didn't have a real understanding of handling my kids for a long time. It was, I'm a dad. Wow, this is scary. I don't know what they're going to do. And they rolled around for a little bit, you know, because they didn't know how to handle them. But then you actually start reading through what a father is supposed to do in his role. And for me, that's a big thing. Why? Because now God's telling me, this is your role. Don't screw it up. There's consequences if you do. And my dad did. I'm not putting that on my dad. I'm not saying that he can't redeem that. He can be redeemed from that. He hadn't yet. I'm still praying that God shows that to him. But it comes down to, we now actually have a way to approach God. We have the bells and the pomegranates on the hymn. And it says it twice. What does that mean? It's real important. Why is it important? What were the pomegranate and bells for?
Well, they could hear when he was entering into the holy.
Beauty and glory.
Beauty and glory. Okay. Why?
So that the priest would be heard when he was entering.
Yeah, are they, like, I never understood that. Are they actual fruit hanging off of this garment? Or
No.
Are they embroidered?
No, they're made of gold.
Okay.
They're made of gold. And they're on blue string hanging down, blue and white string hanging down, or fine twine linen. I'm sorry, it doesn't say white.
So the pomegranates are made of gold as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And here's what I think of when I think of a bell. Who in here thinks of a bell with a little dill in it and it rings back and forth? Guess what? That's not what this bell is. This bell is just a cup hung upside down. Guess what the pomegranates did? They hit it. That's why I said pomegranate bell, pomegranate bell. It's showing you a pattern. Okay? The pomegranates are what are actually hitting the bell to ring the noise to let you know that the priest is entering. Do you think it was for God to know too?
No, he knew.
What else? I mean, why? Because it lays it out here. It really does.
Why not an apple or fig or something? Why pomegranate?
Is it pomegranate because it has so many seeds in it?
The pomegranate is mixing up the seeds.
It's the most fruit
Definitely one of the most fruit.
as far as seeds go.
Yeah.
The messiest fruit.
It's the most, it's the
Hardest to eat.
See, and I disagree. I get
Yeah,
it frozen
I like it.
and you just chomp it all down. Oh, so good. Anyway,
The messy.
but it actually has the most seed. Well, right, and you squeeze it, it looks like blood. It's got the most seed. It can actually produce the most after itself out of any other fruit.
It's hard.
It's hardy, very hardy.
I was thinking,
And those things got thorns on them. The bushes got thorns on them. They hurt.
at the time that you harvest them, or it's in the fall, so like in Jewish tradition, they're always associated with the fall feasts. And so it kind of makes me think, and that's when we're expecting Yeshua to return. And so, like, he's announcing that.
Let me throw out something at you. I'm going to throw it out at you. I don't expect him to come then. I know he's coming.
Okay, yeah.
It's just, it's a different way of wording it. Different way of wording it. Because guess what? Everybody has an opinion. But when you know something, you got more than an opinion. You've got a stance. You actually have something to stand on. It's a principle. Because it's a principle of mine that Yeshua is coming back. It's a principle of mine that I know when it is. Those are things I stand on. That's why I can stand on the fact that I don't eat pork. It's because it's a principle of mine. So that's what I mean. That's the only reason I'm throwing it out at you. So,
The other thing is Israel is always the first prophet, and nothing will replace Israel.
right. Oh, absolutely.
Nothing will replace
Repeat it.
Israel.
Nothing replaces Israel.
But right now, we know Israel is Judah. And here it shows now, all 12 are Judah.
All 12. Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
Yes, absolutely awesome. Why? Because it also takes the focus off the fact that it is one group of people. Okay, and hear me out. Are we all God's people? Yes, that makes us one group. But there's actual individual roles, right? The Levitical priesthood, when it's reestablished, who do you think, or the Aaronic priesthood, excuse me, the Aaronic priesthood, when it takes back into form, guess who that's going to be made up of?
Levites?
Levi?
Absolutely.
Do we have any way to tell who's Levi?
Nope.
No. So let's get that out of our mind right now.
He does.
He does. He already knew. Okay? He knew that my wife's red hair meant something. I don't. I just think it's pretty. Okay? But that doesn't matter. What matters is that no one gets in the way of the fact that it is all of Israel. I'm so glad you said that. Because you get asked that question a lot. Don't you just associate with the Jews? What are you, Jewish? No, I don't think so. I might be from Judah, but I'm not sure. I don't associate with Jews necessarily. I don't just limit myself to that. Because guess what? There's some cool Benjamites, I bet. I'm pretty sure that Asher's got some pretty cool people in it too. You know what I mean? Naphtali, I gotta ask him where he got his name. You know what I mean? There's some people that I want to associate with that aren't just Jews. Yeah, Naphtali Felice. Anyway, but that's what I mean. I'm glad you brought that up because we have to remember that, yes, this was one group of people. This is what came, or the function of one group of people. But when we took on the fact that it is Melchizedek priesthood, then we've taken on that role. Okay? Was Israel supposed to be taking on that role before this happened?
Yes.
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 Were they? No.
Well, they were scared they would die.
Scared they would die. Okay? I think it goes a little bit further than that, though. I think that they just lost. I think they just lost the focus of it because they got filled with all the other stuff. Because what happened when they walked into Goshen that first day? They were.
Alright, this is a lot better.
That's right. They were going, woohoo! Praise Yahweh.
There's grass.
Number one.
That first day they walked into Goshen after coming from the land of Canaan. What do you think they did? They partied. I'm sure they did. Like, we got grass here. We got water here. We got food. Our animals can feed. And they were also separated. What happened? I'm not going to give you a time frame, but years later, when Moses comes back, you can't even tell if they're separated or not. They've so intermingled that you can't even tell if they've separated or not. God is the one that created that separation for them. Okay? He created that separation for them. And what happened when the plagues came? First 3 they had to endure. After that, how were they separated if they were all intermingled?
They were
God did it,
Goshen.
not me. So I don't know. So I'm just making the point though. God did that. Okay? They outgrew Goshen.
Yeah, eventually.
By that point, they outgrew Goshen.
You don't think they all crammed into Goshen, Joe, just to get away from the plagues?
They sure might have. It's New York all over again.
Just a thought, do you think, first of all, we're never really given any picture of what the duties are of a Melchizedek priest. Do you think it's possible that, in a sense, he created the Aaronic priesthood to give us more definition as to what a priest does?
Absolutely, absolutely. I hadn't looked at that before, but you're right. Because if we're taking on this role, that's why we're doing the association now, right? We are in a Melchizedek priesthood, but we have to learn the high priest role. Why? Because we want to talk to God. Who in here wants to commune with God? Yeah, absolutely. And so being that that's the case, we have to know how it was done.
But the New Testament, we say, boldly come to the throne. So that had been misunderstood. Because people just go run it up, thinking that they have full grace, but we don't. We do still need to follow this path.
Absolutely. You have to come humbly before the throne. You can't come boldly.
So
You'll be
that
wiped
was
out.
eye-opening to me when I first saw it.
Absolutely.
Well, you can come boldly if you do it right.
In the
In
order
humble.
that he
Give
asked.
it in your heart and give him praise. That's how you enter.
Your own. I think the only way you come boldly though is in humbleness. You're actually stepping up and doing it. That's boldly coming. It's not a way of reverence, because you have to have that full reverence. Because this is your high priest and creator. You know, your creator. So I'm just saying that the boldness, I don't think it ever refers to I get to talk to God every day. You know.
Yeah, the definition of what bold is there is not a comment, it's not an arrogant.
Right. Not ever.
It's
Can't
bold,
ever
bold
be
is
it,
not
right.
defined as arrogance.
Yeah. Boldly means you coming. That means you're
Right.
coming, but not arrogantly at all. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, well, we know in the book of Revelation, all the cowards were burned in the lake of fire. And it's kind of just, let's take Moses as an example. I mean, he was the most humble person that there was. That's a bold dude. He said, walk me out of the book if you're going to take these guys.
Right.
I'm about bold.
Oh yeah. No. He's one of the most meekest men in the Bible. He's the most humble. He can't stand up to Aaron and Miriam, so God steps in.
Yeah, right.
You know. Yet he's talking to God in complete boldness.
Oh, yeah.
And when he's talking to God, look at it when he's talking to God, and he's talking about, look at your people. You know, are you crazy? I mean, he's like, I'm going to take them out. You know. And then it was like, oh, no, wait, God, all right, thank you. And then I got slept around a little bit, and okay, all right, no, you're back. This is right. You know, he talks about all the problems he had of speech. He had all these problems of speech when God first comes to him and says, you're going to be my tongue. He's going, you're crazy, dude. He's boldly talking to him, saying, you're crazy. I think he slapped him around a little bit for him to really come to his senses. He'll, okay, you know, you're right. You'll take care of it.
And then he's like, the whole book.
And then he speaks the entire book. We don't hear Aaron. We don't hear Aaron. You know?
And you have the picture of Abraham where he's boldly saying, well, now, how about if there's only 45? You know, will you,
Right.
okay, well, how about 30? You know, I mean, that was a bold.
Well, he's the
that
first
was-
Jew.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
Hebrew,
a horse
Hebrew,
trader.
Hebrew.
He's the first horse trading. No, I make the
Yeah.
point.
But-
He's horse trading, and that's what it is. But he's doing it with God. He's doing it with the
He could do it
Creator.
boldly because he knew God's character, and he knew that, you know what I mean? Like, he knew he could stand on God's character and what? I don't know, because it was humble at the same time.
Okay.
He had a
Right. He had a full relationship with him. Absolutely. I mean, when he comes to him and he and the visitors come to him in the desert and he runs out to meet him, I mean, who's got a good relationship with this guy? I don't just run out to meet the mailman when he comes by the house. You know? So that relationship is actually absolutely established, and I'm glad you brought that out, because that's the only way it worked. Who had a better relationship than Aaron with God? Moses. How many times did Moses get to go in the Holy of Holies?
Never.
Isn't it that when Jesus left, he said, I will send you a comforter so that we can continue this relationship?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's always going to follow the order of the things that are laid out. That's why we enter, like I was telling them how we enter every time we go into prayer, how we enter into prayer with going through the steps, and we come up to the altar, and we go to the laver, and we go in, and we eat the table of showbread, and the lamp, make sure everything's lit. And you go to the altar of incense. I mean, you have to go through those steps, in my opinion. For us now, we do that. Why? Because it's the way I get to see God's face. I'm searching after God's face in prayer. That's what it is. I don't know what he looks like, but I'm hoping to see that someday. You know? But here I'm getting a better picture of his character.
Yeah, that's more important than what his face looks like.
Right. Well, his character is showing us that this is what he wants his nation to be. Okay? He wants a nation of priests. He wants a bride of priests. He wants that devotion. But why? And this goes back to the original question. Why and what was the priest's actual role? To minister to God. He was the light unto the nations. He was the first. He was the first light unto the nations. Why? He got to go be in the presence of God. And when that happened, do you think that changed him a little bit?
Sure.
Just a little, right? But he got to do that once a year. And what did it do to the congregation every year? It changed them. It changed them. And we see that when it was done right, it completely kept everything in what? Shalom. It kept things in shalom when it was done right. When it was done after the picture of what it was supposed to be. Shalom throughout the camp. When it wasn't, guess what? Chaos. They were kicked out. They were kicked out of the land. I don't know how many times. We see that. Where it goes, because like I was telling him how the 36 hour night. She just got through reading all of Joshua, Judges, Priests, Joshua, Judges, 1st Kings, Samuel, all those kind of things. And she's gone through, and she's my very dictation person. She lays everything out in a certain order. And she's going, well, did you see how many years this king was in place, and then how many years this king was in place, and then what this did, and how they all screwed up. And then when somebody rose up, the land got rest and everything was good, and then they screwed up again. And then the land got rest and everything was good, and they screwed up again. And you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it was very, very interesting to go through all that, but we get to actually see why that happened. Why it happened was because they didn't have this role in place. It wasn't established right at that point. Was it already established? Yes, it was already established. They got away from it. Became corrupt. There again is my comment to that though. I think it did because they got fed up. They got fed up with people screwing it up. And it was easy enough. And they were going, do we have to simplify this a little bit more? Okay, fine. We'll go ahead and simplify this another step. And that's when they started adding to. And that's my opinion. That's totally my opinion. I'm not giving you any basis for that. It's just my opinion. But there again, it makes a lot more sense to me. Because how quick do we screw things up once we add to the instructions?
That quick?
Real quick. You know, we've been trying to do a snap together full laminate floor, and neither one of us could figure out why it wasn't working, why things were chipping, why things weren't going together very right. And then we actually went back to the instruction and went, oh, we got to add heat. It was 42 degrees in there. You can't do laminate floor at 42 degrees. It won't work. Found that out. 65 is the minimum. It's like if we just gone 2. We were adding the step that we didn't need that. Because he's done floors before, I've done floors before. We know how exactly these things go together. But we didn't actually look at the instructions. We added the non-heat. You see what I'm saying? We added that step. We added the burden of it not working. So, anyway. Well, guys, y'all have been a great audience. Appreciate it. The fact that